Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. I'm joined this evening by Stephen Ray and Anthony Maguire. And we have just made history, Anthony. First time we've ever won on German soil. You can add that onto Bologna away. You can add that onto Feyenoord away. Martin O'Neill. I mean, listen, in the season of all seasons, chaos, dysfunction, falling out, falling in, and everything else, topsy-turvy, stop-start, whatever you want to say. It hasn't half given us a wee bit of belief here and there, and tonight was one of those nights.
Sure is. I mean, we're just talking off air just before we came on, and we're saying it was really important to stop the run of 2 defeats in a row. We've got a massive game on the weekend, so any sort of momentum that you can take into the weekend with a bit in your hand off. I mean, obviously, not enough to get another goal, just to really test and see what could have happened that last half hour or so had we managed to get a second. But a win away in Europe, I think that's Martin O'Neill's second this campaign after beating Feyenoord away. We got a draw in Italy under Martin as well, and that could have been a win had Rio kept ahead. So our away form in Europe's under Martin's been incredible. And the other point I was just saying to you off air was just the shame that we couldn't have kept it a bit tighter last week, because I mean, it just what could have been, I guess. But not taken away. I mean, defended really, really well. So enough positives from tonight, absolutely, to take into Sunday, and that's, I think, really that was all I was looking for. The wins just, obviously icing the cake, and probably what will be Martin's last game in charge in Europe.
That's the sad thing about it, actually. Coming into this game, Stephen, we're looking at a 4-1 deficit, and you're thinking, look, you're talking miraculous comebacks here. You will also remember coming back against another German club back in the 90s, 2-0 down from the first leg. We beat them 3-0 at home against Cologne. I didn't ever get the impression that was going to happen tonight, but I think Anthony's right. You stop the rot. You don't want to go into a game against Rangers with 3 defeats on the bounce, do you?
No. Do you remember the 3 scorers for that game?
Oh, here we go. Right, let's think about it. I think Paul McStay scores. Am I right? I see him running away. Jerry Craney. And although I think John Collins doesn't get credited with it, it might go as an OG. I'm going to say John Collins. McStay, Collins, Craney.
Oh, Collins gets the third one, but Collins has a shot that deflects off Craney that flies in to equalise.
That's right, yeah.
Aye, so you got
so am I right? And McStay,
you're
well.
absolutely right.
Oh, wow. I remember the first leg. The first leg was on that dodgy German channel that you used to pick up on Sky called RTL. Don't ask me why I would normally watch it at this time of night. However, it showed the first leg live, and it was obviously in German. And I taped it. I've got a tape somewhere up the loft with that first leg, which has never been rewatched. But there you go. Never thought the comeback was on, but brilliant to get a win tonight, isn't it?
Aye, we spoke earlier about Martin O'Neill and his selection, and just to not go into Sunday with this hanging over us that it could be 4 defeats in a row. I said before kickoff, my heart said I won each draw. Even with 10 minutes to go, I'm just thinking, let's just get out here not beaten, because it was just evident that we just ran out of steam, ran out of legs a wee bit. I think we never really believed in that second half. I think we had a couple of half chances, but to win the match, I never seen that coming, if I'm being brutally honest. And nobody can say that they rested all the players. I think they maybe rested 1 or 2. Because, they played their main striker tonight. He was on a yellow, so I was actually surprised at that before kickoff, considering the scoreline. So, who knows, this result, as much as we've been out of Europe again, and it goes on another year looking for a knockout stage 1. This could be a catalyst. You've seen a bit of heart and desire for guys that you maybe had written off a few weeks ago. So it definitely gives the manager food for thought. I'm not a fan of Dane Murray, and although he wasn't a perfect performance, I thought it was a pretty good, solid performance. He had a brilliant block right on the line.
Yeah.
So he's given himself a chance for Sunday as a shout. Because it's another big atmosphere he'll go into, intimidating venue. So It's nothing but positives, apart from the fact we've went out. Other than that, I think result, performance, defensively, goalkeeper, outstanding, coming for crosses, saving down low. It's been a good night. It was probably as good a night as we could have hoped for, if I'm being honest, realistically.
I think you're right. And it does beg a few questions. I've never been sold on Dane Murray. I don't like criticising individuals. I've never been sold on him. But I always caveat that by saying he's had dreadful injuries, not just one. He's had 2 really bad injuries, which is why the game time's been so sporadic. Making his debut under Ange Postecoglou, he's still here. Rodgers seemed to love him. Threw him into that Aston Villa game, wee bit unfairly maybe. He makes a wee error and he lets the ball run away from him, takes a step too much, maybe a touch too much. But tonight, I agree with you, Stephen, and I think that's one of the talking points for the weekend. I don't think we're going to change shape. I don't think we're going to be as bold as that going to Ibrox, Anthony. But one of the big question marks, we'll get on to Sinisalo, we'll get on to McCowan, is how we shape up at the back. And obviously, with Trusty being out, with his 3-game ban, the question is it Murray or is it Benjamin Arthur? I think Scales's name's already on the team sheet. But what do you do? Because arguably that's Murray's best performance tonight. He plays the full game, does pretty well, kind of resolute defensive performance. Sometimes it didn't look pretty, but we did what we had to do and we collected a clean sheet. Does Murray stay in for you after that?
Well, it's really hard to know because we're working off such small sample sizes. I mean, Murray gets one game and then he's whisked back out the team again. That's happened to him pretty much his whole career at Celtic. He's never had a real run of games. Benjamin Arthur, we saw, 15, 20 minutes at the end of the game against Hibs. Didn't really have much defensive work to do. It was more just a bit of ball carrying. So we really can't judge. He looks like a big unit, but you can't really judge much on that. So you have to trust Martin and the coaching staff at training over the next couple of days to see what way they're leaning. I mean, Dane Murray's done himself absolutely no harm, excuse me, with that performance tonight. We always sort of say he's usually got a bomb scare moment in him, but there was nothing tonight that you could say that he made any sort of real obvious errors. And I agree that block at the end kept us in the game. So, won us the game. So yeah, I'm sitting on the fence on this one, Paul John. But either way, I mean, one of them's going to have to slot into that right side of centre back. There's a position available. Dane Murray's had the opportunity tonight, being by virtue of the fact that he's in the squad, and he didn't put a foot wrong. He looked strong, and he defensively looked okay. And the thing is, we're going to have to put another defensive performance like we did tonight in on Sunday. There's going to be periods of that game where we're going to be backs to the wall. And then not to mention, you've obviously got the hostile environment inside the stadium as well. So he seemed to handle it okay tonight. So yeah, I don't, again, caveat that with, we've seen him have errors in the past, but maybe this is the making of him. Maybe this is the start, and you can only judge on what you've seen tonight. And it was good.
I'm going to, and as I say, never been a massive fan of Dane Murray, but I'm going to say that he starts for me. He starts at the weekend for me, without a doubt. There's a lot of risk, I think, in throwing in Arthur, simply because he's not had much game time for Celtic, but he's never had much game time at all, has he, in his senior career? I think that was his 4th appearance, three games under his belt down south. So I'm going to work through some of your comments. There's a lot of good, positive comments coming through, which is always nice after a European night. And again, we know that in the great scheme of things, in terms of the competition, it doesn't do a great deal for us. But what it does do for us, it's all about the momentum. It's given a bit of a boost, I think. We're not in the doldrums going into this game on Sunday, but I'm going to put it out there, and I won't change my mind. Obviously, there's not another game to play between now and Sunday. Dane Murray starts for me alongside Liam Scales. The next question, however, is who takes the gloves? And I'm going to come to you, Stephen. I mean, I look at Sinisalo. I've doubted whether or not he's got what it takes, because there's been 3 managers looked at him and didn't think that he was, deserving of a run beyond a Kasper Schmeichel layoff. However, he comes in tonight and he does that thing, like he saves shots and all kind of sorts of crazy stuff. All that hocus pocus that we've not been seeing recently. Someone says in the comments, and I don't want to go too hard on Casper, but, you know, the goalkeeper performance might have been the making and the breaking of this tie across both games. Does Sinisalo start for you against Rangers, Stephen?
If it was up to me, it'd start after tonight. You know, he's got the jersey. He done nothing tonight that says that he should come back out. The stats come up there on my screen. We'd faced 26 shots, only 6 on target, but the 6 on target, he handled really well. There was a couple of really good saves in amongst that. Came for a cross, came for one he punched out. There was one right at the back post he left when it would have been easier to sort of get a hand on it and knock it out for another corner, but he was obviously well aware of his surroundings and his goal area. Obviously, Joe Hart had mentioned that during commentary. So, I mean, it's a big... You knew he was going to be under pressure at times tonight. He never put a foot wrong. He looked really composed on the ball. You know, the players looked really... The defence looked composed in their belief in him on the ball. Yeah. And then it was almost as if he was getting closed down. He wasn't scared to just put it up to the strikers because, you know, whereas Schmeichel's get this thing, he's trying to dink it into midfield, and all of a sudden you're trying to defend your box on a counter from 30, 40 yards out. I would go with him, but I just have this fear that Martin, like we spoke about again before the match, that Martin's a very much a tried and trusted type manager, and he will always go back to guys that's done it for him before. You know, he made a comment when asked and pressed about changing the goalkeeper, and he spoke about how Casper made a save away to Feyenoord, and you're like, yeah, but he's let a couple slip under his body that's put us at the tie. So, you know, there's been a few games where the game against Bologna, the shot that's been sort of straight at him, you could see he's blinded, but he never makes any attempt for it. I don't know.
Similarly against Hibs, Stephen, I'm going to really be critical. I just felt that his positioning wasn't great, which meant that he was rooted to the spot.
The 2 goals against Utrecht, one he didn't die for, the second one he should have saved.
The second goal against Chile, he was rooted to the ground for that as well, the one that bobbed over his head. I mean,
that's right. Yeah.
There's a big enough sample size to say, Casper, I'm afraid it's time to step aside. Like I said before, and I'm not going back in it, I'm not 100% convinced that Sinisalo is the answer, but he might be the best answer we've got at the minute at the club.
I think players can get into a rut, Stephen. We've seen it so often in the past, and then it's sometimes it's about a manager having a loyalty to a certain player or group of players, and they can't see the wood for the trees, so they pick them, and they think that's a safe bet. I think it would be bold. I think it would be bold to play Dane Murray. I think it would be bold to play Sinisalo. And I think it would be bold to play McKeown, and we'll talk about him as well. But in that situation...
Can I just say, on Sinisalo, my only concern with him playing on Sunday would be the physicality side. Now, we spoke about he's not the biggest built goalkeeper. He definitely needs to bulk up a bit. And Rangers have got, you know, Chermiti, Majowski, and the big guy Fernandez, who are all, you know, big guys who are definitely going to be on top of him. So that would be my only concern. But then Schmeichel pretty much can't jump. So, you know, choose your poison.
Choose your poison, indeed. I'll ask you the same question, Anthony. Goalkeeper. I mean, Joe Hart was asked the question there in commentary, and he said Schmeichel comes back in. Who do you go for, do you think?
Well, you never ask a goalkeeper about another goalkeeper. They're all goalkeepers union. They're pretty tweaky. I was just watching Sinisalo's highlight reel for all his saves in that game, and he made quite a few. And I liked how he gets down nice and quick. There was one on his left side or down nice and sharp. But my biggest criticism of Sinisalo, the games he has played this season, Auchinleck Talbot, he came for a couple of crosses and he was just nowhere near it and flapping. And for me, in Scotland, if you're coming for it, you've got to come and collect. And I felt tonight when he did come for a couple of corners, he was very strong. So if he's addressed that and he's got that under control, then I'd have no problems playing him at Ibrox on Sunday. It's the goalkeepers are protected to a certain degree, so if there's any contact, generally, you're out a free kick anyway. But I just think maybe Kasper Schmeichel on the sidelines tonight actually watches that performance and actually puts his hand up and says, you know what, I'm not 100%. I think, I'm ready to step aside for the young lads. I mean, that would be leadership in a way as well. It's knowing when the time's right to actually say, well, you know what, I've been in here thinking I'm the only one that can do this, but actually tonight's showing that maybe that's not the case, and maybe him and Martin need to have a sit down and a bit of a chat over the next couple of days and work out what the plan is going forward. But the performances from Schmeichel of recently haven't been good enough. And for me, in the Hibs game and then the game last week against Stuttgart, it's his just not actually even attempting to save the ball. It's just standing there and watching it go past him, and it's like, at least attempt. If you throw yourself at it, you never know, you might get there. But if you just stand still, you're not going to save it. Like, you give yourself some sort of a chance. And for me, that just comes back to him. I think he's protecting that shoulder, and you just we cannot afford it. We're not playing well enough. We're not solid enough. We're not that far ahead of the opposition that we can afford to carry him through what's perceived to be a long-term injury. So
it would say a lot for him, if he was to be honest about the whole situation, having watched that game from the sidelines tonight. Ronan Gray comes in to say, only 2 teams have won at Stuttgart, us and Bayern. Well, I wasn't going to mention Bayern, I get a row for that. We've also got Emerald Abroad saying, stops the rot. I agree with you entirely. I just think momentum's so big in football. No way Kasper plays on Sunday. No way. No way, says David Boyle. I'm thinking that he's not convinced with Kasper on Sunday. Right, Snufkin's backpack, Sinisalo was excellent. I agree. And he should start on Sunday, says Kevin McMonigal. And I know that, you've got that recency bias, but as Stephen says, there is a sample size of Kasper Schmeichel's, I'm going to say, failures or faux pas this season. And there's enough of a sample size to say that maybe it's time he comes out in the heat 67. Surely that's a huge boost for Sunday. No wagers are better than Stuttgart. Let's hope we can keep it going until then. And then there's Ronan Gray coming back in saying Dane Murray or Sinisalo were his man of the match. Do both players play, Ronan? Let us know in the comments. Do you play Murray and Sinisalo from the start on Sunday? Let's have a look also at the goal scorer. Luke McCowan, John Sweeney says Sinisalo and McCowan start on Sunday. Do you agree with that one, Stephen? Because I'm now thinking, right, for me, Oxlade-Chamberlain starts on Sunday. Callum McGregor does as well. I'm finding it difficult to drop Nygren because of the goals and the assists. So, as I'm looking at McCowan. I'm not sure he's as effective as a right winger, although some of his play ended up out on the right tonight. I'm not sure if he starts. What's your take on it?
I don't think he starts. The fact that I think a lot of the guys who don't normally start tonight, despite their performances, probably won't start at the weekend. Like McCowan, I thought he had a really good game. He took his goal really well. The layoff, the goal actually reminded me. I don't know if you remember the goal against Ferencváros. I think Abada scored. It was a similar type build-up, brilliant layoff and finish. It was either Abada or Kyogo. I can't remember, but I don't think he starts. I think he's a safer player than Hatate. I think he's more industrious. I don't think gives the ball away as much. Hatate is capable of so much more, but he's so lackadaisical at times, and he's giving away the possession. But to answer your question, I don't think McCowan starts as good a game as he had tonight. But he's definitely somebody that if we're in the game, if we're level, or we need to hold on to a lead, he's definitely somebody you could turn to come on, and he's pretty good on the break. He's quite neat and tidy up in the final third.
I'm thinking, by the way, Leo Abada's only 24. Just checked that when you brought him up. 24 years of age. I'm thinking Oxlade-Chamberlain, McGregor and Nygren are my 3 in the midfield, Anthony. And although I do think McCowan was good tonight, and he obviously was the match winner with that early goal after 29 seconds, he is going to be useful to play a game out. He might be a very, very good option on the bench. Do you start him, or is he on the bench for you?
he's on the bench because he's not played a lot of football and he's just played 65, 70 minutes there. So for him to back that up at Ibrox on Sunday seems highly unlikely in terms of like starting. I definitely think he's a good option to come off the bench. He's, as Stephen says, he's pretty tidy on the ball. So if he gets on, if he can feed him the ball, he usually does something useful with it. So he almost falls a bit into the James Forrest category. If we are maybe 1-0 up, or we need to try and unlock a packed Rangers defence with 20 minutes to go, he might be definitely a viable option to bring off the bench. But I agree, the midfield three that you just mentioned will be the starting three. I must admit, my heart was absolutely in my mouth when McGregor went down and wasn't sort of getting back up. I was very stressed at that moment. And the only thing I wanted is quite off topic, but the fourth official letting the Stuttgart player back on in that offensive play. I don't know what on earth happened there. And I tell you what, I think the only person more happy that goal was offside, other than Celtic fans in the stadium, was the referee, because he knew that was a balls up, and it was only by like millimeters that he was offside. Otherwise, that would have been the talking point of the whole match.
I'm not convinced he's offside.
Well, I think they maybe just shaded it just to try and avoid a controversy, because ultimately, what does it matter whether we win or draw the game? And from that sense, but the fourth official, he needs to hang his head in shame. There's absolutely no way he should have been let on in that phase of play, and he should have been let on at the halfway line, not well into our defensive half. So yeah, it was quite absurd.
At first glance, I'm thinking it's so sloppy from Celtic. How the hell is this guy so free? And then it wasn't until the replay you're like, what the hell is he doing? Why is that? I thought the referee was the person that tells players to go back on, not the fourth official.
The referee was waving, but then I think he thought he was at the halfway line, not like where he was on the park. Like I
thought you had to go back to the halfway line as well.
So did I. But
that's
where the fourth officials, got away with it.
They got away with one, and that would have been an iconic Martin O'Neill post-match rant if that was allowed to stand.
It's just great that we've got a decent VAR system tonight, guys, right? I think a big shout out to the fans this evening. William O'Toole says, please for the travelling support, 100%. Jungle Lion comes in to say that look at those away supporters, what an embarrassment this board are. But on that subject, there's been a few messages coming through, because at halftime there was breaking news in relation to Go Radio had Willie Haughey on, and Willie was talking about another way that is being introduced to try and bring the fans together. And the long-term view of that would be that there would be some form of not a control, but an involvement of the fans with a shareholding. Now, a lot of you might have missed it, because obviously we've been looking at the game. I'm going to play the short clip. This was on Go Radio earlier on tonight, and then we can have a wee chat about that on the back of tonight's win as well. Here we go. I think it's on for a couple of minutes.
And tonight, you've joined us to give us some news that the Celtic fans would want to hear about.
Well, over the last few months, I've been looking at what's been going on, and if you've not got harmony in a business, then you've got no chance. And I think some of the stuff has been a distraction over the past few months. And I'm not saying I don't agree with a lot of the things that the fans are not that they're angry about, but I think that after last week and the fantastic atmosphere at the stadium and all that, for it to be killed in 2 minutes, I just think that at the moment, I think that we need to come up with a better solution for how the fans can get a voice. I'm going to look at setting something up, right? And I want to set up. I believe that the 54,000 season ticket holders are the core. They're a heartbeat of Celtic, and I'm going to set up a thing called the Season Ticket Alliance. Mm-hmm. And I want the 54,000 people, whether you're in corporate or whether you're in the director's box or wherever you are, you're in the seats, or you're in, you're sitting in the standing section. That I'm going to set up an office, a small secretariat. I will pay for it. I'm not looking for money off of anybody. And what I want to do is I want the 54,000 individuals. All we need is there'll be more details in the next few weeks, but all we need is either your email address or your mobile phone number. And then that you'll get a number, you'll be part of that Season Ticket Alliance. And what we'd like to do then is if thousands and thousands of people join this, then obviously these thousands and thousands of people between them have got some shares. Look at what sort of shares I'm trying to get to get a system where the people can get a voice, but where we can talk to the club, sensibly, try and get things done. And what I'm offering is that this will be completely separate. I will have nothing to do with it. But for every 10,000 fans that join us, I will put £2 million in to buy shares for this trust. So if we take all the shares of the people who would join through the trust, and then if we add that to it, if everyone joins, there's 10 million. And they will be gifted to the trust. They'll not be owned by me. It's going to be separate for the trust. But I think that we have to get something that all the fans can get behind. Let's get harmony. Let's get the Green Brigade back in the stadium. Let's get everybody singing for the same hymn sheet. And then let's try and create a vehicle. And I've got an idea. I'm going to get a Celtic legend to front it. And I'm not going to confirm at the moment, but I've got that done. And then over the next few weeks, there'll be more and more details about how people can become part of this. And what we're hoping to do as the long-term play is to get enough people behind us here that we can go to the club and say, right, listen, look, this should be the vehicle for how the fans can get their viewpoint over to the club. And maybe we may end up with getting enough shares where we've got a voice, and maybe even potentially in years to come, get someone from the fan base onto the board.
See, when I look at that, Stephen, one of the big things that's come across loud and clear is that the fans don't have a voice. And that's kind of, that's come across loud and clear this season, whereby no matter what you try and do, they can shut you down, they can shut you out, they can use delaying tactics with meetings, etc., etc. But really, you never get anywhere when you're trying to force for positive change at the football club. What do you make of Willie's announcement this evening, Stephen? Do you think it's a positive vehicle for change?
Anybody's willing to put that kind of level of money in to buy shares, obviously it'll be met with some detractors, I've no doubt, because anytime somebody tries to do anything that they'll get criticised, but it's got to be a good thing. Anything that gets more a better fan voice, because at the minute I've spoke about this before. I gave my season ticket up just through sheer frustration, the lack of ambition at European level, and I've not gave the club a penny in 6 years. And I think what was actually really depressing is I had a season ticket for 25 years, and not once have I been contacted by the club in any way regarding merchandise, tickets, maybe when there was tickets available. Nothing. Never been invited to any events. And I'm somebody who had a podcast myself, was on Celtic TV, done stuff with Celtic TV. I've had nothing from the club, and I almost feel like it's like you gave your 3 season tickets up. It doesn't matter because somebody else has filled your spot. See you later, mate, type thing. And I think 54,000, if you want to sign up, that'd be great. I'd like to think that there's a wider, fan base that can sign up that maybe don't have season tickets, because we're more than just the people that go to the game. I care about the club as much as I did when I had a season ticket. I just refuse to be taken for a mug, because that's what I felt like, and I still feel like it, with our European performances and the lack of ambition, and some of the things that came out of the AGM and for Ross Desmond. So good on Willie Haughey. I hope it goes well. Obviously, I want to see more. Obviously, the devil's in the detail type thing. But I think that the days are running out for the Celtic board, and I think Dermot Desmond and his family need to decide: is Celtic just going to be the plaything that they have in the family forever, just as something they can talk about on the golf course, or are they actually going to treat it like a serious business? Because I'm sure he didn't make his billions by going half-assed at it with all his other businesses, So that's just the way I feel about it.
Well, I think that your opening gambit there was that he will bring his detractors. I think you're right. Everybody that has to, who wants to do anything, I think, in relation to this, will have detractors, no doubt about it, Stephen. One or two wee things coming through that I can certainly clarify here. First of all, Rory, thank you for supporting the channel. We really appreciate that. What I'll say to you, Vinny, is that Willie Haughey, absolutely, this will be independent of Celtic Football Club. So it's not a sales ticket, a season ticket sales push. This is independent of Celtic. That's 100% accurate. All the way, this guy angling to get on the board or what? Willie Haughey doesn't want to be on the board, and he doesn't want to be the chairman of Celtic. So that's another angle that we can definitely clarify.
Willie Haughey's got his hands tied up with his businesses as it is in America, in the UK, and in Australia. You know, with his city building type business and city refrigeration, all that kind of stuff. He doesn't have time to sit in the Celtic board, but he definitely cares.
And to build it this way as well, as he said in that clip, they're not going to be his shares. They're going to be the Celtic shares, Celtic fans' shares. Being a season ticket holder says old get 67. That could be any of the three of us, guys. Being a Celtic season ticket holder in the same seat since the North Stand opened and think this is a brilliant idea. We've also got Honey Badger, renew. As I say, this is independent of the club. Is the player that's fronting it Albert Kidd? Well, and this year of all years, surely it could be Albert Kidd, the greatest Celtic player never to play for Celtic. Albert Kidd, up there with Chick Charnley. And Coffey, agree, I miss the Green Brigade, great atmosphere. And there seems to be an impasse between the club and the Green Brigade as well. But tonight was all about Celtic getting a result, Anthony. In relation to that, though, again, there's been a few different movements. We have the Celtic Fans Collective, of course. We also have Celtic Supporters Limited. So there's a lot of groups out there. There's a lot of people trying to force positive change in different ways. I look at this and I think to myself, well, it's a huge investment. It's a huge commitment financially. And in relation to the Celtic fan base, if you're a Celtic season ticket holder who wants to push for change and give the fans a voice, I'm sure we'll hear more from Willie, but it sounds positive to me. What's your take on it yourself, Anthony?
Well, after those minutes were released from the Celtic Fans Collective, I felt quite disheartened and quite powerless. I guess, you know, all these efforts, you know, boycotting the cup game, you know, not buying merchandise, you know, not another penny, all these things that we're doing to try and institute change. And we're just being stonewalled every step along the way. As you say, delaying tactics around meetings, trying to meet with separate shareholders just to try and sort of divide the support. And to a certain degree, that's working because, you know, we're quite fractious as a support, particularly online. But obviously, you take what you read online with a pinch of salt because, you know, that doesn't reflect, you know, the vast majority of Celtic supporters. But things like this have to happen because you've got to be putting pressure at a shareholder level as well, because we sacked the board. Okay, we got rid of that board. But if Dermot Desmond's still in place and no one's challenging him, then you just get another whole load of sycophants in to replace them. And then you're back to square one again. Because ultimately, this is the biggest criticism, is that you've just got a whole load of guys that just kowtow to whatever Dermot wants. Vis-a-vis that statement he released after Brendan Rodgers got, you know, resigned. So, you know, if you want to have actual proper change, you've got to have people in there who've got the club's best interests at heart and not Dermot Desmond's. And that's only going to happen if there's a power shake-up amongst the shareholders. So it's going to take a multi-pronged effort from various sources to try and make something like this happen, because what we're doing at a fan level and the boycotts and stuff, it's maybe shifted the dial slightly, but nowhere near enough to get the sort of change that we want. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, you know, sorry to butt in there, Anthony. If there's three different vehicles, because not forgetting the Celtic Trust, if there's three different vehicles who are looking at the shareholding aspect of this to give more of a voice to the Celtic fan base, at some point, if everybody is doing it for the betterment of Celtic, at some point, if you were at very close to a threshold and you had to amalgamate, I'm pretty sure everybody would come together. You would hope that would be the case anyway. So, no, it's positive tonight. We've won in Europe. We've won away. First time ever in Germany. And there are moves afoot. Hopefully we'll find out more in the coming days. I think it's probably about 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning for you, Anthony, so I better let you go, mate. And Stephen, it'll be getting back up to bedtime for old crooks like yourself and me. So
Don't
I'll
know
let you
about
go as well.
Can I just throw it? It was in my head when you mentioned Albert Kidd. I just have this, the Undertaker meme where it's AJ Styles and then there's the Undertaker standing behind him because he's seen off. I just have this vision of Celtic putting Rangers at the title race this Sunday, and there's a picture of McInnes in front and there's Albert Kidd behind.
Oh, listen, I mean, it's so big this weekend. It's massive. It's absolutely huge. And tonight's given us a wee bit more hope, a wee bit more belief, and hopefully a bit of momentum going into that massive game as well. Thank you, everybody, for getting involved. It's been an incredible week. It's been a fractured week, but hopefully we can finish it off well on Sunday. Give us a thumbs up on the video, and if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel free of charge, and we'll be back tomorrow at 12:30 on a Celtic State of Mind.